Hey guys, this is Fleeciana96 and I'm here to bring you guys another pod fic. Today we're going to be reading a fic from Yaoi Hime 420. It is a Bleach fic instead of My Hero Academia this time. I figured I'd mix it up a little bit for you guys. This fic has 1,540 words. It is titled Cozy. Here's a summary. Grimmjow indulges himself just a little. This fic is rated teen and up. It is soft and fluffy. And if you guys end up enjoying it, or if you want to check out the author's other works, the link will be down below as always. So, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Grimmjow landed in the window of Ichigo's room, scenting the air with a scowl as he determined that the hybrid hadn't been in his apartment for several hours. He'd been hoping for a spar since he was pretty sure Ichigo said he was off work today. Disappointed, Grimmjow started to turn away, but a ruffle of paper drew his attention to the bed. It was a note, fluttering in the breeze from the window, and Grimmjow huffed as he snatched it up. Grimmjow, Ikumi just called me in. A whole bunch of jobs came in overnight. I don't know how long I'll be gone, but if you wait here, I promise we'll spar when I get back. Ichigo. Grimmjow felt his jaw working as he considered the hastily scrawled words. Glancing around, he had to admit it did seem like Ichigo had left in a hurry. Bed unmade, book opened on the desk, and a few discarded clothes that Grimmjow recognized as items that Ichigo liked to wear when he wasn't working. With an exasperated sigh, he crumpled the note and tossed it in a small wastebasket by the desk, noticing the garment slung over the back of the rolling chair. Stepping closer, he recognized the soft, creamy fabric of Ichigo's favorite relaxing sweater. The sweater was several times too big for the life hybrid. He usually looked like it was consuming him whenever he bundled up in it. Grimmjow trailed his fingers down the sleeve, leaning a little bit closer to breathe in Ichigo's scent. Even though it was a few hours old, it still sparkled in his lungs as the heady mixed blood that defined Ichigo Kurosaki. Sighing his breath back out, he curled his fingers in the ridiculously soft fabric, using both hands to lift the sweater close to his face. Unable to resist, he buried his face in the downy folds, inhaling deeply. Grimmjow trusted his instincts, and so he didn't fight the sudden urge to rub his face into the velvety, soft sweater. A series of short sniffs leading him to the collar. Ichigo's scent was strongest here, and Grimmjow scrubbed his face into it. Something in him soothed as his own scent blended with the hybrid's. Once the sweater carried enough of his scent to match Ichigo's, he lowered it just enough to run his eyes over the garment. Slowly turning it over in his hands, a brilliant idea came to mind. He shrugged out his jacket and unzipped his jumpsuit, pushing the fabric down around his hips. Shuffling the sweater around, Grimmjow grinned when he found the largest opening. With some finagling and only a little awkwardness, he managed to get it on. The fit just a bit more snug than it was on the hybrid. Smirking to himself, Grimmjow smoothed his hands down his front, enjoying the feeling of Ichigo's soft sweater on his own body. A curious sniff at his now covered wrist confirmed Ichigo's scent was nearly as strong there as it had been at the collar. Contentedly rubbing his wrist against his cheeks, Grimmjow found himself yawning. Glancing at the unmade bed, he only debated with himself for a few moments before crawling on and nestling himself into the rumpled sheets that, of course, smelled like Ichigo. He knew he never slept long. He'd definitely wake up before the hybrid returned. Ichigo sighed heavily, glaring at the darkened evening sky. The odd jobs he'd been tasked with at work had taken longer than he'd thought. And the entire time, the only thing he'd been able to think of was the fact that, more than likely, Grimmjow had gone to his apartment looking for a spar, and Ichigo was unbearably disappointed that he'd had to go into work instead. He reached his apartment, unlocking his door and stepping in. He was careful to be quiet so his downstairs neighbor wouldn't have a reason to bitch about him making a ruckus at this ungodly hour. Rolling his eyes at that thought, Ichigo toed his shoes off and headed for his bedroom, so that he could get back into his favorite comfy clothes. As he entered his bedroom, his eyes went to his bed, and he froze mid-step, instinctively holding his breath so he wouldn't disturb the scene he'd just discovered. Grimmjow was curled up in his bed, wearing his sweater, both hands curled into loose fists in his sheets. As carefully as possible, Ichigo padded closer, hearing a soft thrumming sound. As terribly as he wanted to touch Grimmjow to confirm he wasn't delusional, Ichigo imagined the violent reaction he'd probably get if he woke the Urankar up by touching him. Staying reasonably out of reach, he spoke softly. Grimmjow? The man on his bed stirred, curling up tighter and pulling the sheets in his fists close to his chest. The soft thrum that Ichigo was never going to tell Grimmjow sounded like purring faded into a little groan at being disturbed. Ichigo bit his lip, studying reflexed features and messy hair, and desperately wishing he didn't have to do this. He wanted to let Grimmjow rest, especially since the Urankar had once told him he'd rarely slept, and that a big part of the reason for it was because he never felt safe. True, they had been pretty wasted at Kitsuki's, but they'd been alone on the patio, and Grimmjow had told him that in a near whisper. Ichigo had never brought it up. Had no idea if the other man knew he'd share that. It was a piece of information that Ichigo felt extremely selfish over. But it also meant that right now, Ichigo would rather lose his powers again than wake Grimmjow up. But he knew Grimmjow would be pissed if he didn't. Would probably accuse him of mocking him or something. So it was with lead in his chest that he quietly cleared his throat, then spoke just a little louder than before. Hey, Grimmjow, you need to wake up. A groan answered him, then a single blue eye, still hazy with sleep, cracked open to peek up at him. Only a moment later, that eye widened, the haze rapidly clearing. Grimmjow lifted his head slowly, and Ichigo saw the crease marks on the side of his face that had been buried in the sheets. Grimmjow stared at him for a moment before lowering his eyes to where he held Ichigo's rumpled sheets against his chest, then to the sweater he was wearing. So quiet that Ichigo barely heard it, Grimmjow whispered, "Ah, shit." Wide, blue eyes rose to meet his, and Ichigo could practically see the Irankar's mind spinning. So he spoke carefully, sending Grimmjow a small smile. Hey, it's fine. I'm not mad or anything. Besides, between the two of us, I'm the one who overthinks everything and has spiraling thoughts, right? Grimmjow hesitated before nodding slowly. Ichigo padded closer to the bed, sitting on the edge of it. He nodded at the sweater, still wearing a small smile. Comfy as shit, am I right? Grimmjow nodded, pushing himself up onto his elbows as he spoke quietly. See why you like to wear it when you're relaxing. Ichigo nodded, grinning as an idea came to mind. Glancing around, he spotted the fuzzy, comfy pants he'd been wearing with the sweater before Akumi had called him. Grabbing them, Ichigo held them out towards the Urankar. If you're gonna wear the comfy sweater, you gotta commit to complete comfort. He could see interest behind royal blue eyes, and after a long moment, Grimmjow reached out and carefully took the pants. More relieved than he wanted to let on, Ichigo stood up and went to his closet, pulling out his second favorite comfy set. He never let Grimmjow see the set, but considering how he found the Urankar when he arrived, he suddenly didn't feel so awkward about it. Grimmjow kept his eyes on himself as he shuffled quickly out of the bottom half of his jumpsuit and into the wonderfully soft pants Ichigo was letting him wear. Movement by the bed caught his attention and he looked up, breath-catching. Ichigo was standing there, wearing a long blue sleeping shirt and blue and white striped fuzzy pants. He didn't realize he'd been staring until Ichigo crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. Really hope you're not planning on making fun of me for this. Grimmjow immediately shook his head, then scooted back on the mattress to make room. Ichigo smiled at him, crawling onto the bed to lay facing him. Are you disappointed we didn't get to spar? The hybrid asked in a near whisper. Grimmjow didn't even have to think about it, shaking his head as he replied just as softly. Are you? Ichigo smiled at him. I was, before I saw you. Now, I'm kinda glad. If we'd sparred, this probably wouldn't be happening right now. Grimmjow's chest grew warm and tight at the emission, and he tentatively reached out to pull Ichigo closer. The younger man grinned, cooperatively scooting towards him. They cuddled close, Ichigo snagging his blanket and pulling it over them. They drifted off in the soft silence, tangled together, and lulled by each other's breathing. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I know I normally read my hero fics, but that one was just so super cute and cozy and just really soft vibes. I hope you can kind of tell why I picked it. I just really liked how vulnerable that moment was between them. They both recognized that it was a vulnerable moment for each other. Grimmjow was like, I'll be gone before he even knows. And Ichigo's like, well, I gotta wake him up so he doesn't feel like I'm making fun of him. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed reading it and taking on characters that weren't my hero. It was definitely a fun little mix-up. If you guys have any comments for me or the author, leave my comments here. And for the author, head over to AO3 and drop those in. The link is down below. Please leave kudos to the author. As an author myself, I know that we thrive off kudos and comments. And with that out of the way, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.